Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? As I've been making these videos talking about this idea that I would much rather have a vocation or career or job doing something I loved or at least was interested in, rather than doing a job I hate or that was just, complete drudgery or I wasn't interested in at all. A lot of you and a lot of people outside have brought up the kind of like conventional wisdom. Well, if you turn your hobby into a profession, the things you're interested into a vocation, doesn't that kind of ruin them? And I can only give you my experience because I don't know. And I would love to hear your experience, but I have had some experiences doing just that. Way back in the 80s, believe it or not, I was making tie-dye t-shirts for a while, and I got really good dyes. I was making very good tie-dyes. And while it was a lot of fun, it was a wonderful creative endeavor. I got to pay my, way to see the Grateful Dead a bunch of times doing that. I realized that, at the end of the day, I was making just as much per hour doing my job as doing that, and it could be a lot of work. I didn't not enjoy doing it, but it definitely got to the point where it started to feel like more of a job and less like, oh, we're going to make some tie-dyes and this will be fun. Let's see what they turn into. More germane to this channel, during COVID, if some of you remember, I ran 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons for some kids at a local library over Zoom. I never met them, but they couldn't have an in-person person anymore. And there were some things about that seemed like work. Number one, I was not really interested in that game at all. And there were, I did a series on that game. I was also dealing with children. I was dealing with children online. So you're kind of like wrangling cats at that point, or herding cats. And there was a range of ages. Some of them were younger. There were some siblings involved, so there was those kind of dynamics going on. So yeah, it was fun. And eventually one of the kids started running games for their group, which is the ultimate goal. That they made me very happy to see them do that. And there were moments to see them come alive and doing some role playing, which was great, and having some fun. But it was a lot of work. I was curating the experience for them. I was doing a lot of work, before the game and during the game. And I was doing some kind of manipulation that I wouldn't normally do, which, in that situation felt very appropriate, but it's not something I would do with my friends, So, yeah, it made it feel a little bit more work. Did it ruin the hobby for me? No, but it was more work. People have asked me, what about being a paid game master? Maybe. And once again, I would have to deal with those same kind of misgivings. Like, am I doing things which I wouldn't normally do? But once again, when you're doing it as a job, it's a job. And that doesn't mean I couldn't have fun doing it. I'm just not 100% sure that I want to do that. There are certainly other aspects of the hobby that I find intriguing in terms of, just looking at games. I hate to really review a game without playing it because you really don't know until you do it. I've toyed around the idea of writing an RPG or two, but then there's, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but do I distribute it myself or do I give it to a friend to distribute that's already got a company that's up and running? All that sort of stuff. And even things like editing and proofreading, I talk a lot about that somebody ought to proofread your games or edit your games and having a second set of eyes. And, that's not something I wouldn't, I would mind doing as a side gig, I suppose. Things like music, I've done a lot of that on a professional or semi-professional basis. And by professional, I mean I get paid. And there's, with that can also there's times when it can feel like a job. There's, just like anything that you do, that's a hobby where all of a sudden you're doing it and there's some kind of obligation. Even if it's just like, it's game night. I've had game night with my friends. We're not getting paid. We're just going to do it. And we all talk about it. There's times we're like, man, I don't know. I'm really tired. And maybe we'll call it off. And then we don't. And then we have a lot of fun. But with music, there's times that I have a gig coming up. And it's like, oh, I really don't want to go out tonight. I'm tired. And I had an experience very recently where I'm driving home from a gig and I'm talking to my girlfriend and she says, well, how was the gig? And I was like, oh, I think I'd rather go to work. And we both laughed. And we both knew that wasn't true. Because I'll be honest, despite all the things that can happen in music, a bad day of making music or doing sound for somebody or doing recording for somebody is still much better than a good day doing a job that I just don't care about. I still enjoy it. So that hasn't ruined it for me yet. There are things like teaching and what have you, like, I've never learned to read music. Maybe I'll make a video about that sometime. But I'd be less qualified as a teacher in a conventional sense. But I can certainly teach somebody to a certain point, how to play. I think I can teach them quite a bit. But do I want to do that? I'm not sure. Would it ruin it for me? I don't know. All the people I know that are making their living doing music, around here, well, the bulk of their income is still lessons. So there is that. It takes a lot of that. That kind of less sexy activity in order to make a living in music, unless you get incredibly fortunate. My girlfriend does this thing called Music Together. She is a teacher as her day job, and she has a CV which is incredible. She's done everything, but she really loves doing this, and it's music with little kids. And if she could do that all the time, she would do that. I don't think that would ever become troublesome or tiresome. She's always really energized when she goes and does that. It's a passion. She's passionate about little kids. She's passionate about music. And we've even talked about this idea of, what would it take for her to go completely full-time with that? And what were the ramifications? And there's some ideas of, well, she would have to be much more involved in the business end of it, which can sometimes make your passions a little less, exciting. But, we're not sure we're going to go with all that. But, certainly it doesn't, she's always come back really, really refreshed and excited. Vlogging. Have I made some money doing this? Yes, not very much, because I have like 2,000 subscribers. I think my best year, I was making a bunch of videos. But, I'm making videos in a niche part of a niche hobby, at least when this channel started. I'm talking about OSR, games in the role-playing game hobby. So it's a very small group of people. My best year, maybe I made like $300. But then again, I have a, much smaller viewership and subscribership and a set of views. But it's a lot of fun. If I could get paid more for doing this, that would be great. But I would have to, talk about things that really interest me. I couldn't be happy selling out. Sure, could I have made some money and had a lot more subscribers if I talked about, say, 5e D&D or something like that? And yeah, I suppose so. But it's just something I didn't care about. So I wasn't going to do that, if you know what I mean. But there's a bunch of things that I, at this point, that I'd love to talk about. So I'll keep doing this. If it makes some extra money, great. If I could make my living doing this, hey, that'd be great. One of the things I really love in general is, I don't know if you call it a passion, certainly not a hobby, maybe, is doing a lot of deep dive research into various subjects and topics, and, challenging my beliefs. Challenging, not being afraid to kill my darlings, really going after whatever's true. And I find these things really, really compelling. If I could make a living doing that, that'd be awesome. I think Veritasium is, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, great channel. I wish I had thought of that. But I wouldn't want to do it in such a way that it was flashy and glitzy and hey, and no, that's because that's not me. And at the end of the day, if I'm going to, do something and feel good about it, and feel like I have integrity, at least integrity myself, well, I can't do those sort of things, if you know what I mean. But that's just something to, another avenue. Certainly I love the idea of teaching and learning. Would I want to do that in a standard, conventional manner? Probably not. I'll probably make a video about teachers and the stuff that they go through, and how little it ends up being about real education at the end of the day. And so even though I really had a great desire to do things like teach science or whatever, the more I looked into it, the less I was, I came back feeling a little jaded and a little disappointed, at least, doing something like that in a say, normal fashion, if you know what I mean. And there's various other things that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about recovery. Would I want to be a counselor? I don't know. I have friends that did that. And you have to be very careful in a field like that, because you can get kind of burnt out. Actually, that's my daughter's dog. You can get burnt out because the recidivism rate is really, really high. So, would that make it tougher for me? I don't know. You know what I mean? But, so yeah, is my answer a little wishy-washy? Maybe, but like my experience has been kind of up and down depending on what I've been doing. I would say overall, it has been my experience, as long as I stay true to myself, as long as I give myself, at least I'm being honest or being objective about what I'm doing. Is this, truly what I'm passionate about? Am I making some adjustments to fit the clientele, if you will? Can I live with that? So far, I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed doing things like my passions and making them income producers as well. If I could make money doing music full-time, I absolutely would. If I could make money doing RPGs full-time, I would. If I could make money full-time support myself just by talking to you, of course I would. You kidding me? How fun is this? I'll talk to you later.